Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then we consider what you know of the news of the day. Prime Minister Muar MP today offered the opposition a slew of reforms in exchange for support in the upcoming confidence vote. Some of the reforms he promised include equal annual allocations for all MPs regardless of party, the implementation of Undi 18 without waiting for automatic voter registration, laws to prevent defection of lawmakers, and a 2-term limit for prime ministers. Now, how will this belated olive branch be received? Let's ask Muar MP Syed Saddiq what he thinks. Saddiq, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Now, we understand you have just released a statement describing the Prime Minister's olive branch as hypocritical. Can you explain why you make that claim?
I believe this is a great hypocrisy. You see them suddenly using Undi 18 as a bargaining chip or holding the Undi 18 reform to ransom to buy political support, while in reality, we've already passed the Undi 18 constitutional amendment with 2/3 support unanimously in Parliament 2 years ago, and now suddenly they're holding that reform until we support them. What more? This is a government which is based on those who hog parties. Right, they took down the legitimate and democratic state governments of Sabah, Kedah, Perak, and many others. And now suddenly, at the end of their timeline, saying that, hey, we want to be the reformists to implement anti-hopping laws. After more than, above and beyond that, after 2 years of starving opposition constituencies, when they're about to lose power, suddenly saying, hey, we're going to give equal allocations. In reality, they're just interested to prolong their stay with the same incompetent leaders and continue to stifle democracy. We all heard in the Prime Minister's speech that he has not committed to holding the vote of confidence. Despite making the statement last week, he said only if opposition agrees to this compromise, only then will he consider to table a vote of confidence. That just shows that despite him losing support, he's willing to do anything.
Yeah, Saddiq, but are there among your supporters and your ground, your constituents, who might think this is an okay trade-off, that, if it means that he will implement this, that it's worth doing, whatever the sincerity or insincerity of the gesture?
We've been cheated by them before. Why should we trust them now, right? They formed the backdoor government before. Up until yesterday, they were still trying to buy MPs over or threaten them in order to get their support. Why suddenly in 24 hours, from a fox trying to kill us, now suddenly transforming themselves into a reformist? I do not buy this. If, and mind you, we have tried to engage the Perikatan National Government since last year for a confidence and supply agreement. They rejected us. What they wanted is to divide us. They said, Saddiq, if you come on board, it's okay. Shafi, if you come on board, it's okay. I don't want this person. I don't want this person. They were never sincere. They never wanted it. They rejected it. We tried to build that great form of bipartisanship, and they rejected it. Only when they lost majority, now suddenly they come up with this so-called sincere proposal. We should not be cheated again.
But will this divide the opposition? Will some quarters within the opposition see this as an opportunity to seize on a reform? Is it going to divide the opportunity, or is this a tactical move?
I have faith in the opposition coalition. I didn't just come up with a statement alone. We drafted it together with Warisan, PSB, APCO as a united statement. We saw Pejuang already pushing away this proposal, and in a bit we'll hear from Pakatan Harapan. I believe opposition coalition will be united in rejecting this. Mind you, this is coming from someone who betrayed the public mandate to form government, above and beyond that started the concept of a scheme of things of trying to buy support to GLC posts and ministerial positions. And when you reject that level of vote buying, then they will threaten you and your family. How could we suddenly trust the same individuals who have done this up until yesterday, but now suddenly in 24 hours shifting their political power play?
Okay, Saddiq, what about the question of kleptocrats coming back into power? That seems to be a part of the, the kind of spin that the Muar government is placing on what might come after him and his government.
You know, the greatest irony, Sharaad, that during the final meeting of the Supreme Council of Bersatu, where Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin lobbied hard for Bersatu to leave Pakatan Harapan, and I posed him from the beginning to the end, he told me, do not worry, we'll have Najib, Zahid and all the others in, but I'll find a way how to deal with them, right? He was the one who opened up the doors and agreed to working with them, and now suddenly trying to take the moral high ground. Oh, I don't want to work with the kleptocrats. Have we forgotten that he dropped the cases for Musa Aman, Riza Aziz, and many others? He has accommodated, let them go, and now suddenly you want to play the angelic role of, oh, I actually want to be hard on them. Don't be a liar. Above and beyond that, let's not forget that he's also doing the exact same thing which kleptocrats will do, which is buying support, threatening people, weaponizing state institutions, right? And above and beyond that, giving money. I mean, we've heard the 30 durians per MP, and we've seen how GLCs and ministerial positions are used to buy support. Why is that any different?
Okay, thank you so much for joining us on the show. That was Muar MP Syed Saddiq Abdul Rahman joining us. And we have now on the line, I understand, Datuk Sri Wilfred Medias Tangau, MP of Tuaran. He's also the party president of the United Progressive Kinabalu Organisation, or UPCO. Datuk Sri Medias, thank you for being on the show tonight. Now, I'm wondering, do you see the Prime Minister's offer as an opportunity to finally constitute a number of lasting institutional reforms? Datuk Sri Medias, are you there? Are you on the line?
Yes.
We'll try to get hold of it. But Melisa, while we wait for Datuk Sri to come on the line.
Hello. Hello. I'm here.
Hi.
Yes.
Datuk Sri Medias, did you hear my question? I'm just wondering whether you saw you're seeing this as an opportunity. All right.
Yes, I heard.
How do you respond?
Those reforms are well and good, but it was a little bit late for him to make those proposals, because he has lost the legitimacy to hold on as a Prime Minister. Through his own admission, he only has 100 MPs supporting him now. All right, so he has lost the legitimacy to continue to be a Prime Minister. Therefore, he's no longer in a position to offer those proposals. He only had one option now, which is to resign. Only one.
Can we ask you this? One of the things that he said in his statement was that he feels compelled to hold on to power because he doesn't want the country to be rudderless or leaderless at a time of a crisis. Do you think that would persuade many people?
Sure. But you see, through his own admission, he has already lost the majority support. He's not in a position to offer that anymore. And I'm sure the Agong will deal with that question after this. He already admitted that he has lost. He only got 100. He only got 100 out of 220. He already admitted that he has lost the majority support. So there's no need to go for a vote of confidence on him anymore, because he already admitted that he had lost. And therefore, then, he's no longer in a position to offer a comprehensive CSA. He should have done that last year or early this year. We have been pressing for this, and I'm one of them who had been pushing for the comprehensive CSA since last year. And I've been even pushing for the parliamentary special select committees and that kind of thing, and there was no response from him. In fact, all the statement that we have done, he didn't respond and things like that. But
yes, I remember we had you on the show to discuss your proposed CSA. I'm just wondering now, if you think that his offer for bipartisan support is moot, then what do you think will happen now?
Let me ask you back. Let me ask you. Do you think he still had the legitimacy to make that proposal? Do you think he still had the legitimacy at this point in time? You only got 100.
The question is, he's also, I think, playing on fears that are in the Malaysian public that we won't be able to constitute a government because there isn't, a consensus candidate, so on and so forth.
That is not for him to say. That is not for him to say. That is for the Agong to determine. That's not for him to say. That's for the Agong to determine. So he should do the honorable thing now. He should do the honorable thing. In fact, when he said that the parliament is going to sit in September, We ask ourselves, if I submit a question, who is going to answer our oral question? Because they have lost the legitimacy to be there. That's the basic question now. That's the basic question. Why
Thank you so much.
didn't he make all those proposals when he still has the legitimacy? Now he has lost the legitimacy. So he's not in a position to do that anymore. He only got one option, and that is to resign. That's our position.
Dato Sri Medis, thank you for joining us on the show. That was Dato Sri Wilfred Medis Tangau, MP of Tuaran. We're going to take a quick break, but after this, we'll speak to political analysts for their take. Stay tuned to consider this.
Control, self-lockdown itu penting. Lebih kurang pergerakan, maka lebih sukar untuk COVID menjangkit kita.
Untuk tempoh 2 minggu ini, duduk di rumah. Kalau kita boleh laksanakan PKP, Kendiri dan keluarga,
saya kira insyaAllah kita boleh berjaya. Akhirnya kita menang.
Amanah di tangan kita. Adat, budaya dan semangat menjadi kesinambungan perpaduan tanah air yang tercinta. Berteraskan adab yang terpahat di jiwa dan raga. Marilah bersama kita membina negara Malaysia.
Untuk memastikan Malaysia ada ke depan dan maju.
Induknya adalah Melayu.
Balik kepada bukan orang yang membuat polisi.
Hi, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me is Sharaad Kuttan. Tonight, we are discussing the latest political gambit from Putrajaya. Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's offer of sweeping concessions to the opposition in exchange for their support in the upcoming confidence vote. Political analyst Dr. Bridget Welsh is with the Asia Research Institute of University of Nottingham, Malaysia. She joins us now. Bridget, good evening. Thank you for being on the show. What did you make of the Prime Minister's offer? And more importantly, what did you make of what he offered?
So, good evening. I would say that this is an extension of the offering and deals that Muhyiddin Yassin has been doing since he's been in office to try to secure and to shore up his power. And I think that it really sort of indicates one action of desperation as opposed to one that is actually has the trust and genuine acceptance. And I think we've seen how some opposition MPs have already responded. And in a way, what it does is that, you know, this is the second sort of political transition that we've seen in the kind of post-coalition dynamics of Malaysia. And it extends this crisis, which I think in some ways is quite serious for the country. In terms of what was on offer, many of these reforms were part and parcel of things that got Muhyiddin elected initially. And of course, what we've seen in the context of his government, that many of the reforms that were introduced during Pakatan Harapan were actually dismantled and eroded. And so it's very difficult to build a political base on these and political legitimacy in terms of these reforms as being genuine when, in fact, you yourself have not been a reformer when you've had power.
Bridget, you know, we just had Tuaran MP Medis Tangau on the show, and he said this has come too late. He can't, in fact, make the offer now. But there are others, and in reference to something you call the let's make a deal politics, Bangi MP Ong Kian Ming seems to think that this might be an opportunity, and he's willing to go along with it, whatever the, as it were, preconditions are.
Well, I'm sure there are individual MPs that will have different positions on this. And I think that this has been not something that is new. There are some that want to cooperate and see the issues in terms of political stability and sort of working together in a different way than those that see more contention and more confrontational politics. And this is, one of the real challenges of what's happening right now is you've had a political polarized system, which is requiring compromise for solutions. But the question, however, is whether or not you can work together viably and there's actual sort of realistic initiatives that are actually being put on the table. And I think given how long and how drawn out this kind of I'm not yet resigning situation has been, I think it's very difficult for opposition to actually take the Prime Minister seriously on his offers. And it's also difficult for the Prime Minister to actually implement them. But I do think there are real fundamental challenges that Malaysia is facing, and that there is a need to have compromise, and it's going to involve at least some elements of the current government with the elements of Pakatan Harapan to come together. There needs to be a coalition that actually can come together in a viable way. I think it's not likely to be led by Muhyiddin Yassin, despite his attempt to try to stay on to power. But compromises do need to be made, given the seriousness of the crises that the country is facing. You have another 277 people who've died today. And I think that, what was striking about the conversations today is that the pandemic and the governance of the pandemic were missing. And I think these issues are fundamental in that regard.
All right. Bridget, can I ask you what the optics might be, particularly for the public, should the opposition turn down the Prime Minister's offer for bipartisan cooperation, which, the public may see it as one of a generous concession to make all these sweeping reforms? Do you think that there might be backlash to the opposition should they turn this offer down?
So we can see three things, right? So the offer has already sort of divided the opposition. Although I think overall the opposition is more united in rejecting the offer. There are probably a few individuals who feel differently, but I think overall from leadership, I think we're going to see rejection of these offers because they're not seen as genuine. The second issue is that there is this question of political stability for the country. And I think many people in the business community and many Malaysians who are looking at COVID-19 management are concerned that whether there'll be a change of government, that this will affect not only the impact of COVID-19, but it would also affect the issues in the economy. And I think there is a groundswell of some support for this. And I think this is what Muhyiddin Yassin has appealed to. And in effect, what he's done is if there is this instability continues, he can now lay blame on the opposition for this as opposed to himself, where in fact much of the responsibility and the extension of it has lied with him so far. And third, of course, the question is what's happening with the opposition. The opposition's in its ability to actually come together and to offer an alternative, and importantly, offer a different set of programs to address the issues of governance, I think have also been quite missing. And I think now what happens is that the baton has put much more pressure on the opposition to get its act together and to come together as a group, as in terms of their numbers, to offer an alternative.
All right, Bridget, thank you so much. Oh, a quick one, another one.
Yeah, very quick one. There'll be a lot of debates about the constitutionality of what's happening, including the fact that if it's an admission that he's lost support, he must resign, even if it is to then build a new coalition. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think, what we've seen is Muhyiddin Yassin has refused to sort of give up power. And I think this has not been a dignified way to handle these issues, and it's put strain on democratic institutions. And I think the longer he stays there, that continues to put strain on these different practices. But at the same time, what we're seeing is that the tipping point was reached and it is not moving in Muhyiddin Yassin's direction. And I think there's going to be, from today's discussion, discussion, it's really an admission that he actually doesn't have the numbers. And I think it's going to be very difficult at this point for him to hold on, even though he's going to continue to do what he's done for too long, which is to try to buy time and continue in a way that, in fact, actually really takes away from the ability for a different government to be able to sort of come to the crisis that the country has in a meaningful way, in a different way, in order to kind of ameliorate the suffering that people are feeling.
Thank you so much. That was political analyst Dr. Bridget Welsh from the Asia Research Institute. Let's take a quick break, but we'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
Self-lockdown tu penting. Lebih kurang pergerakan, maka lebih sukar untuk COVID menjangkit kita.
Untuk tempoh 2 minggu ni, duduk di rumah. Kalau kita boleh laksanakan PKP Kendiri dan keluarga,
saya kira insyaAllah kita boleh berjaya. Akhirnya kita menang.
Amanah di tangan kita. Adat, budaya dan semangat.
Thank you so much for staying with Sharaad and I on Consider This. We're discussing Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's latest appeal for bipartisan support in the vote of confidence next month. Political scientist Dr. Wong Huat joins us on the line now. Huat, good evening. You've just released your preliminary analysis of the Prime Minister's announcement, in which, Huat, you say is significant because it introduces a shift in Malaysian politics. Can you quickly outline what you found significant in his announcement today?
The key point here is that Muhyiddin stressed that you need to have an alternative majority to take over. So what he is introducing is the idea of constructive vote of no confidence. And this is the main point that I think a lot of middle ground voters will be looking at. When Sheraton happened, from the day that Muhyiddin resigned to the day that from the day Mahathir resigned to the day that Muhyiddin cabinet was set up, there was nearly about 2 weeks' time that you do not have anyone there. So the most important thing for the opposition to respond to this is to come out with a clear majority on negotiations of the power. Then whatever Muhyiddin said today would not work. Now, second point that
sorry, Chinwat, if I could just jump in and ask you, but shouldn't, and this is what constitutional experts are saying, that he should first resign before he tries to build a new coalition based on these, a new compact, a compromise, a reform agenda. He needs to first resign because he's lost the majority.
Yes, he should. The question here is also in some countries, you might actually have some time for you to put on the vote. And I do not think that he can actually indefinitely push it all the way up to 7th of September. That's irresponsible. The vote must happen before the royal address, and it should happen in August. But the question come back here is also at the same time that we are seeing an unintended consequence, that opposition is asked to make a better offer.
What do you mean by that? Could you elaborate? Yeah.
They have to have a majority so that they can take over. And if they have the majority and they can match the offer made by Muhyiddin, then whatever Muhyiddin offered today becomes insignificant. So the main point we need to go back here is that in the process, are we seeing, while Muhyiddin is cheating procedurally, is the opposition rising to the unfair competition he's putting up to?
But Chinwat, let me ask you this. If he was sincere about a CSA or some sort of bipartisanship, shouldn't he have first discussed it with those political parties? Shouldn't he have been appearing today with those political parties where the others can state their demands? What we're hearing is just half the story, isn't it?
No, he is not sincere. But sincerity here is not the point. The point here is whether he would be forced by circumstances to deliver his promise. And for that to happen, that Muhyiddin need to immediately mitigate the public distrust of him. He would need to lay down certain things. For example, he need to bring the vote of confidence earlier, and on that day, before the vote on him, there should be a few items. For example, amendment to the standing order so that in future, motion of no confidence supported by, let's say, 10% of the MP would have to take precedence before government. He needs to introduce some of the irreversible changes. If he is talking about committees, he needs to put forward and all this before his vote. So after that, even he loses the vote, all this reform can still hold on. The question here we need to go back is that what are the opposition putting up? Of course, they have every reason to distrust Muhyiddin. But we also need to ask, are they offering something better or just anything and say, I want to take over? Now, that's the point why I talk about this constructive vote of no confidence, because we need that. Even though that this is not in the Constitution, eventually we need to bring it in. But for now, this is a good position. I encourage the opposition to take it on, immediately form a majority, because you have 120 votes. If you can form a majority as little as a minimum at 111, and you match the offer, if not going for more, then Muhyiddin should resign. The vote need to bring forward immediately.
Right. Okay, we have very little time left. I just want to ask you if the opposition is in fact united in rejecting this proposal and can take on what you've just proposed about a constructive vote of no confidence. What happens next in the short term, in the lead up to the next sitting of Dewan Rakyat? What do you think we need to keep an eye on?
What happened on the Dewan Rakyat floor would happen before this, because the public society will start talking about, and that depends on how far that Muhyiddin is showing his commitment. If he is doing everything as if like this is a pasar malam bargain, that unless you come to me, I'm not going to introduce anything. Now, then the public mood may be actually shifting to the opposition despite not having a majority. However, if Muhyiddin is actually putting down, showing his commitment, for example, not to use police to harass the protester, Lawan protester, and to immediately gazette the date for Undi 18 to come in force. Now, people may still vote against him because they no longer hold on to it. But the public opinion may actually be swinging to them, and the opposition would be hard-pressed to come up with a majority with the same or better offer, or otherwise, the mood, once the public mood change, the opposition may not be able to ensure that everyone would vote against Muhyiddin.
Thank you so much. That was political scientist Dr. Wong Chin Huat on the show. That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely weekend, folks. Good night.